And now, more Utalk. Now.
Well, welcome to our Utalk Live. We are continuing on with our self-quarantine with COVID-19, and it's been an interesting time, I think, for everyone. And Katie, it's been really interesting for you because you actually had to go to the ER the other day, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So I have not been feeling well for a couple of weeks, and like really high fevers, chest pain, just freezing, like just can't get warm. And my doctors are like, well, maybe you have it. And then finally this weekend, they're like, you know what, you need to go to the ER and get looked at and get checked out. So I was actually in isolation in the ER over the weekend, and they all decided that I need to go get tested for the virus and be quarantined. So I'm wearing this beautiful mask, and I'm going to be exiting, and Steve's going to come on. So I will not be with us for the whole show, but I just wanted to come on and say hi and tell you guys, you know, why I was not on the show. But it's been a very interesting experience. You know, it was very weird being in isolation in the hospital. That was probably like the freakiest part, because you go in, and like, you can't even like go in anymore. Like, you go through all these checkpoints, and then everybody like just like puts on all this stuff before they even come near you. And then they literally like lock you in a room, and like your door has to stay shut the whole time. And nobody's allowed to enter or exit except for like your nurse and your doctor. And they have to get completely like several layers of gowns and gloves and masks and the protective gear. And like, you're not even allowed to leave the room for the bathroom. Like, they bring in like a bathroom to your room.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, so it was very weird and kind of creepy, because it was the middle of the night I was in there, and it's like two options: either leave the lights all the way on or be in a black, dark room. And I was like, you can leave the lights on. You know, it's tonight's episode, we're actually talking about fear and anxiety through this whole episode. I mean, the pandemic episode of the coronavirus, thought that kind of tied in really good.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry you have to go through the isolation, but I mean, I guess it's better to be on the safe side. And so they haven't gotten back to you with results, or you're not even sure if they actually tested you, right, for COVID-19?
No, I have to go get tested, and they don't keep anyone in the hospital. They only keep very severe people in there at this point. Like, you can't even have visitors or anything if you're at the severe level, just because they're trying to keep the level of it down.
Right.
So I don't know. They think I have it, but I have to go get tested to confirm that I have it, and I have to isolate like I do have it. So if anyone's going through that, I can relate, because it's weird. I wouldn't say I'm anxious, but it's a little like, oh, do I have it? Do I not have it? Especially when you have more immunocompromised issues, it's even more of a threat to your system. So then people are kind of like freaking out. What can you do? If you have it, you have it, and you just have to really treat it and do what the doctors tell you and just try to recover. So,
well, and you just mentioned you've been dealing with some other health issues with your immune system, and actually a whole host of other issues. I mean, kind of share a little bit about that in terms of like how you've been coping with, you know, a lot of the stress behind that, and some of the anxiety that you've experienced. Because I know, you know, I think people are just experiencing the COVID-19 uncertainty, but you've been going through this for the last few years.
Yeah, so when you're first diagnosed, you have the symptoms, you really don't know what's going on. And it is a little scary, because you're like, what is going on with my body? Am I ever going to get better? Like, you really don't know. You're like, is it something really dangerous? Like, what's happening? You want to freak out, but then at the same time, you're like, you know what? Like, why am I going to freak out? I really don't know what it is yet. There's no reason to totally freak out yet. You know, let's just do what the doctors tell us. Let's just go through the testing. And really, whatever you have, you have. You can't change that. So what's the point of freaking out over it? So really, I think the best way is to find, like you said, coping methods. And I kind of think what I did, just talk to a lot of people. Like, I kept it secret, and then I realized like talking to people was the best thing to do. And then another coping method is journaling and really like writing, stuff like that. That's kind of what I did. And exercise and eating right. Those are really, you know, kind of the coping mechanisms that you want to find stuff that's not harmful. You know, a lot of people turn to the drugs or other stuff like that, and you want to find the healthy stuff to cope with.
Yeah, no, well, we hope and pray that you don't have COVID-19, but at least, you look like you're not feeling terrible, but that hopefully you're improving each day. And we love you, Katie. Hopefully you'll be able to rejoin. I mean, not that anybody's rejoining society right now, but at least be able to walk around the house a little bit more than just have to stay in your room the whole time.
Yes, I will be in quarantine for 2 weeks, so I may jump on next week and just say hello and then get off. So
sounds good. So I think we're going to bring in Steve. So we're going to do a little switcheroo here.
Hey, Larissa.
Hey, Steve. You are now in the hot seat. And
oh, it's hot.
As Katie goes to self-quarantine now, I realized you had to wait a little bit, so you were like 6 feet away from her before you sat down.
Yes, absolutely. Safe distancing. And, I'm even learning how to practice with a mask. I'm not wearing a mask tonight, but I had to wear one for the first time today because it is the law at this point in time.
Yeah.
And it's outside of your house.
It's not exactly fun to wear a mask. It's hard to breathe.
That's for sure.
We did a little video PSA about masks involving some Star Wars that actually, Dr. Josh, you probably would appreciate that. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but my husband, significant other, and I did a little funny video about what would happen if Darth Vader orders delivery.
I've seen it. It was funny. And the expression on your face was classic, especially as he's going, get back. Give me that distancing. It was good. Fortunately, when I went into the Italian market today, Claro's in Southern California, they didn't tell me to get away. I had the mask on.
Right.
Well, I think, it's like the playing medical thing. I want something that's a little more fashion statement,
Yeah, Katie had a very fashionable one.
Yeah, no, I got to go looking for that, or, just something that isn't just plain. But it's kind of weird. I don't know about you. It's just freaky to me going out. I mean, because normally you think somebody's wearing a mask, they're pulling a heist, They're going to rip somebody off is what they're doing. It just feels so uncomfortable. I was saying, I really just don't want to do this. I thought, well, some friends said, no, you need to do it. It just feels funny. So again, that anxiety and I think we begin to wonder, is this thing going to be over anytime soon? Statistics keep changing. Stories keep changing. It seems like there's a flat line now. Hopefully that will reduce some of this fear, because uncertainty is going to be there, I think, until we know here's the timeline, as of whatever this date, we're going to try to head back to normal. So the uncertainty is going to be a part of it. But the fear and the anxiety, and I imagine it's worse for some than others.
I also feel like some people, depending on like where you're consuming your information and your news, right?
Right.
Like, I think that feeds into the fear, where some people are like, you should only limit your, news consumption to once or twice a day, and don't read the news or your news feed, like right before you go to bed, because you're going to go to bed very, very anxious because all of a sudden all you're thinking about is all the negative news that you're reading. And it totally wrecks your mind.
No, it does. And it frustrates me with the lack, I think, of integrity with some of the news organizations, because I think some of it is fear mongering, and like I've had the TV news on, at some point if I was in the kitchen doing something and to hear, breaking news, and I'm going, where you guys been? That happened yesterday, and it's kind of that underlying kind of a thing. So you really do have to be selective. You have to be careful and maybe just turn it off for a period.
Yeah. Well, and I also think people, there's just so much in the rumor mill, or like you said, fake news or whatever you want to call it. I have my aunt who keeps texting me, or my mom who keeps texting me, and she's getting people forwarding her things about all these fake messages about everything's going to be on lockdown. You won't be able to leave your house. And then I have to point everybody to the official state of California or the U.S., the federal, or wherever you're listening or from. It's you need to kind of go to the official channels and see what the parameters are, because there is a lot of fake information going out there.
Yes.
And it's just especially people that are older. So help take care of your parents in terms of letting them not be anxious. And because I think sometimes the younger people actually aren't as freaking out as much.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we're though, we're not necessarily in the demographic that's at risk, maybe we just feel like we're more invincible or whatever.
It's the adage of it'll never happen to me.
Right.
And yet you look across the board, ages, and they're saying, hey, there is that age, bracket where you're way more at risk than others. But you've got younger people dying. We look at the list of celebrities and performers and, athletes. It's been crazy. It really has. So definitely I wouldn't buy into it won't happen to me.
Yeah. But at the same time, I know like some person was telling me, like, a friend of mine was like, yeah, but every time you report like all these like cases, hundreds of thousands, it makes it sound like all of them are going to die. But actually a much smaller percentage is actually going to die.
Yes.
It's just a lot of people are getting infected. And so it just feels like it's pervasive. But actually there are a lot of people that have died. So I don't want to minimize that. But certainly the percentage is a lot lower than, in comparison to how many people actually have it.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a good point because you can really begin to freak out if you start listening to some of these numbers and then not processing them and saying, okay, well, you've got X number of people that are infected with it, but that doesn't mean that they're going to die. A lot of people like, Tom Hanks and his wife, Rita Wilson, and we could go right down through the list. So I think it's having a balanced perspective. And I think maybe that's what Dr. Josh can bring for us since he is the professional. We invited him. If you're not familiar, if you're just joining Utalk now, Dr. Josh is part of the Utalk crew. And we bring him in from time to time with his expertise. And we also let him talk about being a Trekkie because that truly is part of his being and his dinosaur blue that he takes everywhere with him. So I think Dr. Josh is kind of in the wings.
Yeah, I'm going to get off. I'm going to make room for Dr. Josh right now. So I'll see you guys later.
Hey, talk to you soon. And we're going live with Dr. Josh. Dr. Josh,
hello.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
But this whole thing of, I'm going to use the word coping. You and I have had lots of conversations about coping with different kinds of things. Now, this is a new one for us to have a conversation about, and that's why we wanted to have you on. You've got an expertise that we're grateful for, and help to unpack this. You think of this pandemic that's happening and the fear, and I'm thinking of students who, hey, school's done. It's over, and I'm interacting with people who are saying, hey, I'm not going to have a graduation. There's going to be no prom. It's awful. Parents saying, hey, my son or daughter, they're not going to be walking in the ceremony, and students are having to scramble to get online to find out, what's going on, to what they have to do to finish their credits and all. It's pretty crazy. Let's start there. How do you sort through all that stuff?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot going on, and uncertainty, the unknown, is a big part of it. I kind of think of two main paths on this. Is one, there's legitimate, honest grief and loss.
Yes.
The way we do life is different. Even we talk about sunny Southern California, where we all live here on Utalk, but we've had a lot of rain, right? When my little ones have too much energy and all their extracurriculars are canceled, I can't even shove them outside. I can make light of grief and loss about that, but even being able to walk around the neighborhood, some of those things are gone. You start upping that to proms, graduations, weddings, vacations, bigger things, even outside of health status. These parts of our lives, the things we love to do, our hobbies, there's losses there. And it's important to just acknowledge that's a loss. Yeah, and we may never be able to get it back. Sometimes,
hopefully we'll be able to get the smaller things back.
Absolutely.
At some point. Just spend it hanging out with friends is,
sure.
And I know there's some people that are giving students grief, because they're having a hard time letting go of that. That's part of their life, it's
absolutely
to be able to spend time with friends. There's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, we've spent a lot of time hanging out online and, texting back and forth and, video chatting, whatever it happens to be. But there's still that big element because relationships are so important to us.
Absolutely.
And that's gone. And you just, interesting side note that you gave there, that if we ever get that back, some of these things we can't recover. We can't recover a graduation. We can't recover a prom. I mean, yeah, you could schedule another one, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
I think a lot of that's going to happen anyway.
And that, I think, is the other theme, is things are different. Anytime there's change is fundamentally stressful. Even if it's good change.
True.
Change is stressful. Now, absolutely. A lot of this change, I mean, is good from the perspective of we're here doing things to help our broader community, to help other people, right? There is a self-protection piece, but I think it's really important to remember for many of us, death rates may be lower from a percentage perspective, but by doing the physical distancing, it's not me I'm protecting, it's other people.
Absolutely.
It's other loved ones. It's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
But those kinds of things thrust upon us. When change is forced upon us, that makes it even harder. Yeah. So one of the things I definitely recommend, and I think Katie kind of alluded to some of this at the beginning, is building some kind of structure and schedule to your life really can be helpful. Knowing what to expect throughout the day, building a new normal. A lot of people, and even today, we're talking about when will we get back to normal? And I think what people mean is when will we get back to the way things were? And I'm not sure that will ever be the case.
Yeah, I think
nor should it be necessarily.
You know, and that whole concept of building some kind of a structure. I was just talking to another good friend of Utalk's, Gerald Carter. He's been involved with our Rock and Red events for homeless teens here in LA. And I was telling him, hey, getting some advice to start working out. Believe it or not, I'm back at it. I'm trying to do the jogging every day and weightlifting, and because I mean he's a gold medal winning weightlifter and power lifter, and that whole, he used the word framework, which I really liked. And I said, I'm trying to get into that schedule of where I have certain things I need to be doing. I've got my to-do list. I heard another well-known drummer, Kenny Aronoff, he's phenomenal. I mean, this guy has played with almost everybody, recorded with him, and he challenged me in the sense of, every day he's going to a studio. Now, he's the only one in the studio, but he's working on his craft. And some of you know I am a drummer, and I've started that as well, and I'm going back to the basics, kind of the rudiments, and working on those, and I'm realizing I need to work. And I think it's important for us not to just let the days go by. Have a to-do list. I mean, that's what Kenny is saying. Hey, get that. I've got my to-do list, and I'm going through it. So I think that's a healthy thing, part of coping, a good way to go.
Even if it's getting up, take a shower, get breakfast, have some sort of routine, for many people can be very, very valuable. And I think that that's a really important balance here. Is hope is critical in these times. And that isn't the opposite of, for lack of a better word, being stupid, right? Let's not be ignorant. Let's not put our heads in the sand. Wear a mask when you go out. It helps other people's lives. It's like putting on a seatbelt when you drive in the car. If we really look at the statistics of car accident rates, I might never drive, especially with my kids in the car, right?
Yeah.
So I have to have hope that I'm a good enough driver, that I can be a defensive driver, but we put things into place that are reasonable cautions. So we have physical distancing right now. We have masks akin to defensive driving, drive the speed limit, put on seatbelts. We don't complain about those things anymore because it doesn't just help us. It helps other people as well.
And to have that added, and again, attitude is so important here too, to have that attitude saying, hey, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to do it. Think of the big picture. And thinking of other people, thinking of yourself. Getting rid of that attitude it ain't never going to happen to me because it just might, and if it doesn't, you could hurt somebody else. You just don't know, but you don't have to be paranoid. I don't think in any stretch.
I agreed. It's making good, wise decisions. That's wisdom. My wife and I, we did a home birth for our littlest, and part of my theme was don't be stupid, right? If there's a risk factor or something, go to the hospital. If all is looking great, fine. I mean, we have a hospital 2 miles from our house, so the risk was low, but that's some of the pieces. And I think that can help with our coping, with the anxiety, is be aware of what the risks are. I mean, again, don't put your head in the sand. When, again, using driving as an example, when we think I'll never be in a car accident, well, go back to Joey. I mean, and we grew up in an area where there were lots of fatal car accidents. I mean, we had one of the highest death rates in the nation, I heard at one point, and from our high school. Every year, we had people who died from our school.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all their fault. There were a multitude of reasons. young folks die in car crashes.
Well,
young folks die of COVID.
I don't know if you're familiar with this, but every 15 minutes is a program that I've been part of going into schools with law enforcement. And every 15 minutes, a young adult dies as a result of, they say, distracted driving. That could be, anything from being on your phone, texting, music, whatever. In fact, I'll never forget, I was in Orange County at a high school where just a couple of weeks before our every 15 minutes with the highway patrol, a carload of students were on their way to the prom, and the driver reached down to pick up a pack of gum. Lost control of the car. Two of the people, including the new ASB president, were killed. Of course, she and her boyfriend were not wearing seatbelts. Simple thing. And several others were injured. The driver, minor injuries, but there it is staring you in the face. It's that simple thing of life is so precious and we don't know. So, and of course, my theme for the assemblies is choices. Here's how to make better choices, simple but better.
That's right. And I think that this is a time when we're hopefully getting back to what are our priorities? What are our core values? If it is about taking care of other people, that's what all of this physical distancing is about, is loving one another, taking care of one another. And as you said, relationships, social support is vitally important when we talk about coping, finding some way to maintain the meaningful connections, finding meaning in our lives. There's ways that we can do that still. And that, I hope, will take us forward into a better new normal. So what do you want to do for the structure of the day? Maybe it is connecting with good groups online. Maybe it's encouraging other people who really need it. Maybe it's going out and picking up groceries for the people who can't get out of the house. There's people, part of my church, who are doing that because we have a massive retirement community of people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, which includes a nursing home. They've been on lockdown completely.
Yeah,
they still have needs.
They have, because they're so vulnerable. That's right. I think it's what I hear you saying, kind of underlying, is get your eyes off yourself. And, because things change. I know for me, I'll just speak for me. When I get my eyes off myself, it's a whole different world out there, and I'm reminded of what is called the golden rule, which is treat others the way you want to be treated. Simple. I mean, we're not talking rocket science here. I mean, it's simple stuff. Take care of other people. Look at other people. And I can almost guarantee if you do that, you're going to get that aha experience.
Absolutely.
You walk away and go, oh, I want to do this again. And it could be as simple as just texting somebody to check on them. But this is all part of this coping mechanism, because again, you and I have talked many times about this, that, don't, to students, don't do this. Don't, you hear adults, doing this a lot, parents sometimes, hey, you guys shouldn't do this and don't do this. And, okay, but there's an underlying factor. Why? So in this, here's the uncertainty of COVID-19, the fear factor. Maybe you've lost a friend, a relative. I would think everybody knows at least somebody who has tested positive for it, possibly somebody who's died. And I guess we know indirectly by looking at celebrities who've lost their lives, and you don't expect that to happen. I mean, they're a celebrity, right?
Right. Like the British Prime Minister who's in ICU.
And fortunately, he's out of ICU now, but this is the new normal. This is the new reality, at least at this moment. So let's find, what are some other ways that we can cope?
Well, and I think, with the caveats of what Larissa and Katie were also talking about in limiting our news intake, I think it's important to know what is going on, because that affects the risk factors, but we don't have to dwell on it.
No.
One of the things that comes to mind, especially that you're talking about with kind of getting our eyes off of ourselves, is gratitude. That is a great practice in general. So many people unemployed. Many of us have jobs. I work from home normally and then travel. Now my travel is gone completely.
Yeah.
I'm busier than I am normally. And I believe I've got a very secure day job, and I am very grateful. Most of us have homes. Most of us can take a walk around the block. There are things to be grateful for. I'm complaining about the rain in Southern California. I'm grateful we've got rain. because you know what? We all know we need a lot of it. Absolutely. We may not have access to all of the things that we normally would, so I can't go out and go to an amusement park or a movie theater. But imagine if this even happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Oh.
The access to things that we have now, totally different experience.
It's so different. And, I'm thinking back to what Larissa and Katie were talking about a few minutes ago in the show. Journaling. What about, as part of the journaling, just every day listing, I don't know, 3, 4, whatever, half a dozen things that you're grateful for. Simple things. I'm grateful for the shelter from the rain. I'm not out in a tent somewhere.
Absolutely.
I'm not homeless. I'm grateful to have food to eat. In fact, I got plenty of food to eat.
Even if I don't like it, it's food.
Toilet paper, I mean, let's just get right down to the basics.
And then from my phone, I can order food. I can order toilet paper. I could order, and people will come and bring it to me. Like it's magically happens. But I mean, showing gratitude to those folks. I like the journaling too. Often we know that writing things down, and more by hand than by typing, quite frequently. But whatever works for you, and you don't have to share it with anybody. But the gratitude piece. Journaling is also really great to be able to acknowledge what our fears are, our worries, our anxieties, our concerns. Writing it down allows it to kind of get outside of us. And now it becomes more of this thing. And I can see, all right, I am very concerned that my loved one is going to come down with COVID and die, and that terrifies me.
Yes.
Okay, you know what? That is a legitimate fear. Just by being able to write it down and what we call externalize it, we can say, okay, now I know what this is. Is it okay to be afraid? Yeah, absolutely it is.
And it's safe, like you said, you don't have to share that journal.
That's right.
By the way, I hope nobody is with us right now that kind of sneaks into a brother or sister's room or whatever and kind of try to go through it. That's their world. That's private. That should not be, and you don't have to share it. You can pour your heart out there and externalize it. I love that term. Josh, we're going to need to bring things to a close, but I think we need to continue a conversation with you. One more thing that you think is just critical to coping.
I'd mentioned social support before, but I also want to really highlight exercise, physical activity. Exercise is really the number one coping strategy for both depression and anxiety.
Really?
We underestimate it. It's good for our overall health. Katie was talking about healthy eating as well, but even just pacing inside of your house. I have an inside bicycle. I used to ride my bike to work for exercise because I hate exercising. I've used that a few times. We thankfully got a bounce house on clearance in the fall for the boys, and it fits in our living room for those rainy days.
No way.
Great way for their energy to get out. When we're inside and have anxiety, if we kind of look back at us just biologically, anxiety gets you ready to fight or flee, that running away. Your body's getting ready to do something.
Say that again, just so people catch that.
Anxiety, fear, our bodies physically are getting ready to either fight something off, a bear running at you, or fleeing, run away from the bear. I don't know which one's better to do. It depends on the size of the bear.
It's encouragement, frankly, because since I've got myself back into a routine, and fortunately I live in an area where there's some horse trails, and I can get out on the horse trail and jog, and it clears my mind. It releases energy or being pent up.
That's right.
Gives me a different perspective. And I jumped on the scale today and went, like what's happening, big guy? Because it's going down a little bit.
It's a nice added benefit, But you imagine if your body is getting ready to fight, to flee, it's getting all this literal energy and tension pent up. And then we come and we sit and we watch something. And we're quarantined in our houses. I mean, right now, that's really a big issue, right? Where does that energy go? And you wonder if you're having trouble sleeping or you got a backache. I won't complain about the things that none of that's happening to me whatsoever. Exercise is a way to let that energy out, and it really can help significantly. Plus, it's part of your routine.
Now, how about an in-home bounce house party? Like we could have a Utalk sponsored one where we jump around. I don't know. I'd like to see.
That would be fantastic, and we have to have it on video.
Hey, as always, Dr. Josh, we love having you around. We're glad that you're part of the Utalk crew. And for those of you that would like to reach out, you're feeling anxious, you'd like to chat a little bit more, you can reach us, of course, on social media. You can also text us. Text the word Utalk to 411-247. or go to our website, utalkradio.com. But we're going to continue this discussion. And please, everyone, be safe, be healthy. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
This is Utalk Radio.